Hello, I'm Will, and I'd like to welcome you to my Midnight Monologues. It's been quite a while, and I want to thank you for coming back. I didn't intend for there to be an almost 6 month gap in between my first and my second episode, but here we are. I've actually had this episode planned since I released my first episode, so I'm happy I'm finally able to tackle this. This is the second episode of my show, and I wanted to put some focus on something that has had a huge impact on my life and the lives of many others around the world, and that's music. It's something that's been around for thousands of years and has seen many different genres, ways of being made, and ways of being heard. Throughout elementary school, it was a requirement that we take a music class each year. We would usually learn about different notes, listen to different genres of music, learn about the do re mi's, and of course, play the recorder, which was a staple of the elementary school music class experience. I never really had any interest in playing the recorder. I would do the bare minimum to pass, and I never went above and beyond to play complicated songs. The reward was getting a new pipe cleaner to tie around the bottom of your recorder, which I didn't really care for, but other kids would go crazy to get them. I knew hot cross buns, and that was enough for me. I didn't really develop an interest in any specific music until I was in middle school. When I was in 8th grade, the movie Kingsman: The Golden Circle came out. I got the opportunity to watch it after its digital release. In this movie, there's a whole plot point that Elton John gets kidnapped by a drug cartel and forced to perform for them. And he acts as almost a comedic relief for the more serious scenes. Because of this movie and him being a bit of a plot point, I started to listen to his music, and over time I became a huge fan of him. In 2018, Elton John started his farewell tour, where he went around the world to tour for the last time. Due to COVID, this tour lasted for an outstanding 5 years, and I had the chance to see him when he came to Madison Square Garden for his second visit in March of 2019. From my introduction to Elton John, I then became interested in many other classic rock music artists, such as Queen, the Beatles, the Eagles, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, and many more. For a few years, all I really listened to was 60s, 70s, and 80s rock. My parents would tell me that I had an old soul and would brag to all their friends about my great taste in music. It's nice to talk to my parents' friends about something that isn't school or career related. Answering the same questions of, so, what's your major? What year are you in? Do you like your classes? Can become redundant and get a little repetitive. Over the last couple of years or so, as I've been in college, I've been able to expand my music interests and got really into 90s and early 2000s grunge music. And that's primarily what I listen to now. But a little while ago, I was thinking about what my favorite albums are across my entire music interest. I've seen dozens of YouTube videos and TikToks about album rankings and all that, so I thought that I could take a step back and take a deeper look at what albums would go in my top 5. Now, it took me a while to put this list together, and I also have 3 albums that I would put in my quote-unquote honorable mentions that I couldn't go without mentioning and giving credit. But I am pretty confident that this is my true top 5, and I'll explain as I go on. I think it's also important to recognize that one person's top 5 album or favorite album or top 5 songs is very much an opinionated thing. We all have opinions, and especially when it comes to music. It's very easy to say that a specific artist sucks or that a specific song is terrible, but at the end of the day, that's one person's opinion. While I am definitely guilty of making fun of people's song choices and everything, I think it's also important to recognize that music is a sacred thing for a lot of people, and that it could even be an escape for them if they're going through something difficult. I know that music has been an outlet for me in many times, whether it be where I was feeling sad and I needed cheering up, or I felt happy and I need something to go along with that feeling, or I felt sad and I needed a song to validate that feeling. There's so many different songs, so many different artists that somebody can find a song and relate to. And I truly do think that is the beauty of music. So as we go throughout this list, if you have a disagreement with wherever I put an album or have an album in my top 5 at all, I appreciate the feedback. I think one of the best things we can do is have conversations, especially about something as enjoyable as music. But anyway, back to my top 5. In my eyes, I categorize a good album by whether they have at least 3 good songs. So, for example, an album that's not on this list is What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis. The 3 songs I would categorize as good songs would be Champagne Supernova, Don't Look Back in Anger, and Wonderwall. Basic, I know, and some people may have different opinions, and that's just what makes for great conversation. So for every album, I'm going to mention 3 songs that make it a great album, even if there are more than 3 songs that make it great. To start the honorable mentions, I want to start with the self-titled album Audioslave by the band Audioslave. If I were making a list of best singers to exist, I would no doubt in my mind put Chris Cornell at the top of the list. I even have a rule that if any Chris Cornell song comes on while I'm driving, I can't skip it. It's really a respect thing. Audioslave is considered a supergroup since it was formed after Rage Against the Machine broke up and includes all of its members except for Zach De La Rocha. He was basically replaced by Chris Cornell, who was part of bands in the past such as Temple of the Dog and Soundgarden. The talent of all these artists absolutely shows in their self-titled debut album. My 3 songs that I would say make this a great album are I'm the Highway, Show Me How to Live, and Like a Stone. There are also many other good songs on this album. Cornell's spectacular vocals and raw emotion put into his singing are truly heard throughout the album. Show Me How to Live gives a great performance of how well Cornell can sing while basically yelling, and I Am the Highway displays powerful vocals and lyrics about being mistreated and overlooked. I'd highly recommend that you listen to the whole album from start to finish. But if you're going to give any song on this album a chance, then I would say to listen to Like a Stone. That's the song that introduced me to this album, and it's an amazing song. Between Cornell's vocal range, the guitar solos, the catchy rhythm, this song has everything you'd want from a great rock song. Overall, I love Chris Cornell. He's a greatly influential figure in the world of rock, and he left us too soon. No one sings like him anymore. My second honorable mention is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. This was really the first album that I listened to continuously, and when I got a record player, it was the first album I bought. As someone who only listened to Elton John for a few months, this album was a pretty big part of what I listened to. It continues to be one of my favorites to this day. It has so many hits, and other not-so-popular songs that are still really good. If I were to choose my 3 great songs on this album, I would choose Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting. Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding is about 11 minutes long, and it's an absolute trip to go through. The different instruments used throughout, especially the synthesizer, all come together to make a spectacular song. It's honestly my favorite Elton John song of all time. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is a beautiful and powerful song about getting away from fame and returning to a simple life. It may not be relatable to everyone, but it's a great song nonetheless. Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting is a fast-paced, almost punk rockish song about, well, fighting in a bar. It's the song that's used in one of the final fight scenes in Kingsman: The Golden Circle. The camera work is phenomenal in this scene, and you get to see Elton John beat the crap out of people. I would recommend that you look it up on YouTube sometime. Elton John and Bernie Taupin are one of, if not the best songwriting duos to this day, and their work and talent are truly displayed in this album. There are lots of hits on this album that it's kind of hard for one to find a song that they won't like. My last honorable mention would have to be Throwing Copper by Live. This is an album and a band that most people probably haven't heard of, but is a very underrated album in my opinion. While I wouldn't say that every song on this album is a hit, there really isn't a bad song. If I were to give my 3 best songs from this album, it would be Selling the Drama, Lightning Crashes, and All Over You. Selling the Drama is a song with strong lyrics about standing up to adversity and staying away from blindly following those in power. Lightning Crashes is a great song about the idea of reincarnation and serves as a message to be there for those who have lost someone. You probably heard this song, but might just not recognize the title. My favorite song from the album and from Live themselves is All Over You. This song is about, well, I don't really know, and nobody on the internet seems to know either. People online have speculated many things, like this song could be about a man who's in love with a prostitute, the emptiness of religion, or a parent expressing love to their kids. All vastly different meanings. The album flows really well. It starts strong and keeps a consistent pace. This was one of my most listened to albums of last year, mostly from when I would throw it on during long car rides. I would highly suggest the album if you haven't listened to it yet. Now, on to my actual top 5. At spot number 5 on my list, it would have to be Grace by Jeff Buckley. It was the only album that he ever released before his untimely death, and I think it's a terrific album. Some would even call it a masterpiece. The emotion you can hear in each song on this album, the deep lyrics, and the vocal range he has makes the entire album. When I was writing out the script for this episode, I originally had Grace in the honorable mentions, but then I went and gave it one more listen, and it felt almost wrong to keep it out of the top 5. I originally found this album after listening to Buckley's Hallelujah cover, because I knew people raved about it. After listening to it, I was genuinely in awe. My 3 best songs on this album are without a doubt Grace, Last Goodbye, and Lover You Should Have Come Over. Even now, I feel like this album should be higher on the list, but I won't go too crazy. Last Goodbye is a melodic song with a great chorus that features the pure range of Buckley's voice. The song is about a man who painfully ends his relationship, but comes to mutual terms that they weren't meant for each other. Grace has a catchy guitar rhythm that plays throughout, and is complemented by deep and meaningful lyrics about a bittersweet departure from someone you love, with the title word grace referring to accepting love, pain, and tragedy. My personal favorite song from the album, Lover You Should Have Come Over, is a song with themes of regret and being unable to reconcile a lost love. The mix of mellow, low singing followed by the belting and meaningful lyrics towards the latter half of the song comes together to make the perfect song. The yearning you can hear in Buckley's singing is honestly astonishing, and his vocal ability is unreal. Ultimately, I could probably make an entire episode analyzing each song on the album. But for now, all I can really do is recommend you listen to this album in its entirety just to experience it for yourself. At the number 4 spot of my top 5, I put You Don't Mess Around with Jim by Jim Croce. This album is very different from any other album on this list, with its roots in folk rock. Jim Croce is similar to Jeff Buckley in the way that he was gone way too early, and didn't get the chance to release nearly as much as his potential. This album has so many good songs, and the storytelling power of Jim Croce in his songs is honestly pretty impressive. I read something a little while ago about how each of his songs has an element from real life. For example, the song New York's Not My Home relates to when Croce and his wife lived in New York for a bit, where he didn't feel like he belonged. He also got screwed over by label producers during his time there, so that definitely didn't help his case. Another great song on this album, Operator, refers to a time when Croce was in the National Guard training, where he saw many soldiers waiting in long lines to call home to their girlfriends, with some of them getting the news that their significant other wanted to break up. Time in a Bottle is simply about feeling true love, satisfaction, and joy in a relationship. It's really about how precious life and a happy relationship are. If you couldn't tell already, my top 3 songs on this album would have to be New York's Not My Home, Operator, and Time in a Bottle. Overall, it is a spectacular folk rock album, and even if you're not into that type of music, I would still give it a listen. At number 3, I put The Stranger by Billy Joel. This album is a rare case in the sense that pretty much every single song on here is a hit. In my opinion, Everybody Has a Dream is the only questionable song on the entire album, but even that is a pretty good song. The album has the perfect mix of faster, higher tempos, singing with a group of friends in your car, and slower, powerful songs with deep meaning. My top three songs from this album would be Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, Just the Way You Are, and Vienna. Just the Way You Are is a beautiful song about unconditional love and acceptance, and the idea that somebody doesn't have to change to please the person they love. I personally love this message of deep appreciation for loving someone's true self, even the imperfections. Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is one of my favorite storytelling songs that doesn't take a lot of deep interpretation to understand. The song uses a piano and saxophone throughout, but the way they are used starts slow, gets a little more upbeat, stays that way throughout the song, and then goes back down towards the climax. One could see this change in tempo and mood to be the quote unquote scenes in question. The story of the song is about high school sweethearts who get married, live together, have a few issues, and ultimately end up getting divorced. While not a happy ending, it all comes together to make a great song with a spectacular story. Lastly, Vienna. This song is a metaphor for aging and how your age shouldn't define who you are or what you do. While I am not old in any sense, I do resonate with the message of the song, and I think more people should have this type of mentality. Just because you're a college student doesn't mean you can't watch the same Cartoon Network shows that you regularly watched when you were younger. I say that from experience. The song overall has a great message that anyone can take meaning from. It also has an accordion solo. How could you not love that? I highly recommend this album. It's one of the greatest of all time, and I can almost guarantee you'll love at least a few of the songs. To get a full view of not only this album, but also Billy Joel's life, I would highly recommend watching the documentary And So It Goes on HBO Max. It is 5 hours long in total, but it shows him as a person throughout life, and an artist like Billy Joel is guaranteed to have a great story. At number 2, I have 10 by Pearl Jam. In my opinion, this is the best debut album of all time. Pearl Jam also had a crazy 3 album run with Versus and Vitalogy following them. The emotion that Eddie Vedder can express in these songs is astounding. This album is a staple when we are talking about 90s grunge, along with other albums like Nevermind by Nirvana and Dirt by Alice in Chains. It would be very hard to have the genre of grunge without Pearl Jam. I started listening to them around the beginning of 2023, and they quickly became one of my favorite bands, and a consistent top 3 in my most listened to artists each year. When I was younger, my dad used to listen to Pearl Jam and dozens of other 90s rock songs on CDs whenever we were in the car. At the time, I was never really into it, but as I grew older and matured and started to relate to some of the songs, I've since grown to love 90s rock in general, especially grunge. My top 3 songs from this album are Once, Alive, and Black. One of the most underrated parts of this album would be the song trilogy that's included within, known as Mama Son. The songs included in this trilogy are Alive, Once, and Footsteps. Since 2 of them are in my top 3 songs of this album, I'll tell you a bit about the somewhat disturbing story that comes from them. Alive tells the story of a teenage boy who finds out from his mom that the man that he thought was his biological father is actually his stepfather, and his biological father died. Then, the song takes a very weird turn, and the mom starts to have an incestuous feeling towards her son, which takes us to Once. Once is about the son's anger building up from the deceptions and lies that he's endured his entire life, and the actions of his mother to the point where he loses it and adopts violence overall. He becomes a serial killer and takes revenge on the world. And to simply sum it up, he goes to trial and get executed. So, yeah. Well, not a great and happy story. It has some great songs with phenomenal vocals from Eddie Vedder and spectacular guitar solos from Mike McCready. Black is by far the best Pearl Jam song, not only on the album, but in their entire discography. This song is about first relationships and the pain of letting go. It's definitely a tough subject, and I'm sure a good number of people can relate to the general message of the song. But the pain you hear in Eddie Vedder's voice throughout the song is just mesmerizing. There are two live performances of this song that I listen to pretty often. One is from Pearl Jam's MTV Unplugged performance at Kaufman Astoria Studios in 1992. The other is a solo performance from Eddie Vedder during the Firenze Rock Festival in 2017. To this day, anytime I listen to any of those live recordings, I get goosebumps. Despite the 25-year difference between the two performances, the emotion is all the same. The lyrics in the song that hit super hard are when he sings, "I know someday you'll have a beautiful life, I know you'll be the star in somebody else's sky, but why can't it be, oh can it be mine?" So many people have felt this way. Just the hurt, the confusion, and I'd be lying if I said that I haven't related to this on some level in the past. It's really just a super powerful song on a great album. Coming in at my number one spot, it is undoubtedly the album Abbey Road by the Beatles. This may be a basic pick in the eyes of some, but it deserves the recognition that it already receives worldwide. In my opinion, the Beatles are the best band to ever walk the earth. Even if I do listen to a bunch of other bands more often compared to the Beatles recently, they will always have my number one spot. Their discography overall is just full of hits. To this day, the Beatles still hold the record for the most number one hits with 20, and I don't think that achievement will ever be beaten. There will never be another artist or band that has more influence than the Beatles do. They were a group of four phenomenal musicians and even better songwriters. While John and Paul have the most songs across their music, George and Ringo still have some great songs throughout, especially George, who is very underrated in his songwriting skills. Anyway, back to Abbey Road. This was their last album to ever be recorded. However, it wasn't their last to be released. That goes to Let It Be. The creativity and pure talent that is put into each and every song on this album is astonishing. From the hits on the A side to the medley on the B side, there is never a low point in this album. My top three songs from this album are Golden Slumbers, Here Comes the Sun, and Something. Golden Slumbers is part of the medley that I just mentioned. The Abbey Road medley begins with You Never Give Me Your Money, and from there, it is essentially a collection of different songs that come together to form a cohesive whole. If you weren't watching your phone as you listen to each song, you would barely be able to tell when the song switches are. Of all those songs on the medley, Golden Slumbers could definitely hold up on its own. It's almost like a lullaby about comfort and safety, and Paul McCartney displays his impressive vocal range throughout. The song is definitely improved when you combine it with Carry That Weight, but like I said, it holds up very well on its own. Looking at the A side of the album, Here Comes the Sun is by far one of the most popular Beatles songs. There's definitely a chance that you've heard the song in general or in movies like The Parent Trap or The Bee Movie. It's just a very calm and beautiful song. The use of the acoustic guitar and the great singing by George Harrison would come together to create a song that I can only describe as perfect. Harrison was inspired to write this song when spending time with fellow songwriter Eric Clapton in Clapton's garden on a spring day. The song ultimately serves as an escape from the business and working environment and brings the listener to a place of hope and relief. Something is another song written by George Harrison. It's a love song with a few different inspirations. It's said that Harrison wrote the song about his wife, Pattie Boyd, and some say the lyrics are also inspired by Krishna consciousness, which he was widely known to have believed in. At the end of the day, the song is purely about love. Frank Sinatra even said that it was, quote, the greatest love song of the past 50 years. There have been over 100 covers of this song, with Sinatra himself covering the song, and even Elvis Presley performing a cover. George Harrison wrote some of the best songs in the Beatles' entire discography, and for me, this one takes the cake. The Beatles, as a band, have had a huge impact on me since middle school. Along with Pearl Jam, they are in my top 3 most listened to artists of each year. I've watched dozens of documentaries, read hundreds of articles, and even took an entire college course about the Beatles. They're a super interesting band with a vast history, and they've had a huge impact on the music industry and music in general. And that's it. Those are my top 5 albums, along with some honorable mentions. I encourage you to take some time when you're free to take a minute to think about your top 5 albums and why. This was honestly very fun to come up with and write about. I also encourage you to ask others about their favorite albums and what they like. If not an album, a song. Someone's music taste can tell you a lot about who they are. I personally align myself a lot with the music I like, and I'm proud to say what I like to listen to, if that wasn't obvious by my taking the time to upload my opinions on the internet. Music is one of my favorite things to talk about with people. As someone who doesn't really listen to newer music, it's always nice when I find someone with similar music taste to me. And even when someone doesn't have similar music taste to me, I love being able to show them the songs and artists that I enjoy. Music has unified people for centuries, and I know that it will continue to do this in the future. No matter how old you are, where you're from, or what you like, music can be a uniting factor in all of our lives. I want to thank you for joining me for the second episode of my Midnight Monologues. I really do enjoy making these episodes, from writing the scripts to recording to editing the audio. I love every second of it. Even if this podcast and the Loaf of Milk channel in general aren't really big at the moment, I love doing it, and that's all that matters. In the words of System of a Down frontman and activist Serj Tankian, quote, I think every artist should follow their vision. Their heart is what they need to reveal, not something that society is looking for. If there was something that you wanted to do or make and you're afraid of committing to it, I would suggest to try it out. It can't hurt to try. We created this channel in 2021, left it for 4 years, and then came back. Why? Because it's something we enjoy, and that's what matters most. And the same goes for music. Even if someone may make fun of your music taste, it's about what you like, and who gives a shit what they think. On behalf of all of us here at Loaf of Milk, we'd like to wish you a peaceful day and a restful sleep. I'll be back next time.